Welcome back to the Grappling Bulletin podcast. I'm your host, Corey Stockton, here as always with Connor Joshin. Connor, it's fight week. How you feeling?
I am ready. I'm excited. You can tell I came in with the finger guns. You copied me, Corey. I think we started a thing with the finger guns. Super excited. Gordon versus Pena 4. Can you believe it? A year ago, people didn't think the third match would happen. Now we're running it back again on Who's Number One rules. Can't be more hyped for it, Corey.
Yeah, man, I'm really excited. We've been kind of going through the archives, watching all of the Gordon Felipe matches, every match in the saga, which, by the way, is it's like 3 hours of watching.
Lots of mat time,
for guys. Sure worth it. Yeah, these guys are probably more familiar with each other's grappling styles than many other athletes out there, right? The first match, nearly 45 minutes long. The second match, half an hour long. The third match, of course, nearly 45 minutes long. So these guys have spent a lot of time with each other. And we went back and watched some of it. I want to get to that in just a little bit. But before we do, we've also been spending a lot of time with Gordon and Felipe.
Super fun to do.
Right here.
Yeah.
Chase, of course, out in San Diego, and the rest of the team here in Austin. We've got to spend a lot of time with Gordon, with Felipe, seeing how they're preparing, seeing kind of what's going through their heads in this final lead up, this final push to Who's Number One.
With shout out to our guys, right? Shout out to Chase, shout out to Trey. They've been doing an awesome job keeping us all updated on this fight camp.
So I have kind of my own takes on what I've seen, but I want to ask you first, what are some of the takeaways from watching the All Access series?
Man, I think my favorite takeaway is just how close the jiu-jitsu community really can be. During this training camp, you know, you're seeing some of the stars that we've seen come up through Who's Number One, that we've seen do really well on the ADCC scene, like Cole Abate and some of these guys showing up. And it really just kind of makes it like the Who's Number One roster is a little bit of like, it's like a world of athletes that really are interacting with each other, visiting each other's gyms, and like cross-pollinating, either whether it be technique, training styles, or just some experience that, you know, I can't imagine what Cole was able to glean from Gordon. And I'm sure, you know, Cole can probably give anyone in the world a good matchup. So I'd love to see some of those training rounds if those are out there.
Yeah, of course. Cole and Gordon and Giancarlo had that monster lifting session in Gordon's garage. We followed that up, of course, with Jonathan Gracie and Felipe Pena and Andre Galvao having their own monstrous workout session in Andre's garage. And let me tell you, like, Andre drives a crazy strength and conditioning camp. I was kind of getting fatigued just watching what he was putting them through, just these timed rounds. I think Felipe, if I heard right, went through a 45-minute session of just like blast after blast after blast workout for explosivity and endurance. And I can only imagine what that means that they're preparing for. Speaking of endurance, that round that Gordon went through, 30 minutes with Nicholas Mergali at just a hellish pace, followed by 10 minutes with Luke Griffith out there. So these guys for sure getting ready. And of course, got to talk about the, let's call it the Corolla saga.
Yeah, the Corolla saga. I'm happy to see all of them working out. If you haven't been following along, whether it be with the All Accesses, you can just check that out on our Instagram. We got both of them, and I think it's going to be really interesting. Atos keeps, a really tight fight camp there. They have obviously some of the best athletes in the world across all weight classes. But on top of that, they are not lacking for athleticism. I love to see that they're diving into these long style workouts. We talked about previously, we talk about a lot, actually. Some of these professional athletes, when they're at this level, there's very few people in the world that are training like them. And it's really interesting to see kind of the level up of their own training process that they had to go through under this, extenuating circumstances of a no time limit rule set, right? We're already establishing that these guys are the best of the best, the hardest workers in the world. But not only that, you're also having to pace yourself for 30-minute matches, for these 45-minute burnout workouts under Andre Galvao. What more can you ask for? And we documented it all.
Yeah, how do you prepare for something that theoretically has it's not just no time limit, right? It's like this thing could end in 15 minutes. This thing could end in 2 hours. How do you pace yourself for that appropriately? Do you just plan like I will make sure this ends in half an hour, so I'm going to train as if this is a 30-minute match or a 45-minute match or an hour-long match and just say, this is the box I'm putting this in. That seems to me, and I'm just speculating here, like what both of these guys are doing, right? If you look at the single glimpse we had of Gordon's camp, it was them training for a 45-minute or a 40-minute match. If you look at the glimpse we had of Pena's workout, they were very specific about it. This is a 45-minute nonstop blast workout. So makes me think that both of these guys maybe felt something about the 45-minute mark in the last time they faced each other, or for that matter, the first and second time they faced each other, right? All of those were within 40 minutes. Now, different rule sets and different things like that, but still. I think we can expect that these guys are going to be prepared for. I mean, who knows what we can expect? Who knows what they're prepared for? But it seems to me like they're preparing for this 45-minute match.
And that 45 minutes seems very strategic. If you look and hear from what Gordon Ryan has been talking about after his Gordon versus Pena 3 match, he really did feel a lot more confident that he had broke Pena after that 30-minute mark, and he kind of started upping the intensity. And if you ask me, it did look like he was targeting that 45-minute mark the first time. And having implemented that strategy, and regardless of how you feel about the match, whether, whose side you're on, it did on some level feel like there was something that changed after that 30-minute mark. He put it in on that extra 15 minutes. And, man, those 45-minute rounds, those 30-minute rounds in the training room are going to be what really matters when that 15-minute kind of clock between 30 and 45 kicks in, and we kind of start seeing the cracks in anyone's game if you haven't seen it. And if you haven't been paying attention, I know Corey had mentioned it, the Corolla saga. The Corolla saga, Gordon Ryan is he loves his cars. He likes to show them off. But he doesn't just, let himself live that lavish lifestyle all the time. Isn't that right, Corey?
I mean, lavish, I guess, is a matter of perspective, right? Because 2020 Corolla to me sounds like, all right, we're going places.
Yeah, that's true.
But at the end of the saga, sorry to spoil this for everybody. It seems like Gordon traded in the Corolla for a Jeep. It seems like he's done enough suffering.
Yeah.
We all understand that.
Yeah,
right?
He's given himself a little bit extra. Yeah, he must be very confident about it. But you gotta love to see that someone that kind of Gordon came up traveling in the New York City metropolitan area, really slumming it to get to these practices, early practices, staying long hours. He is no stranger to hardship and suffering to get to training. So it's cool. He's trying to, it's almost like getting back to his roots as much as he can. We don't have a horrible subway system to suffer through here in Austin, Texas. So I guess he's trying to find a way to do it. But
the All Access series has definitely given us kind of a glimpse behind the curtain for both Gordon and Felipe. That series is going to continue, not just this week, but through Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the day of the press conference. We'll release something on Saturday. So we're going to continue sticking around with Gordon, with Felipe, maybe some of the supporting cast as well throughout all of this week, give you the all access feeling with these athletes. Connor, I want to jump onto something that you started talking about just a minute ago, but I want to take a look back at the last match, right? Gordon versus Felipe 3, and think about maybe some of the sequences or the exchanges that stuck out to me. Obviously, I went through a lot of this match over the last couple of days, really trying to peel out what made both of these athletes kind of stand out and look dangerous. And maybe the first thing that jumped out to me rewatching this was, and maybe no surprise if you know how the first and second match ended, but people know Gordon Ryan as probably one of the most dangerous leg lockers in the business. But it's not even that Felipe was avoiding the leg entanglements. Felipe was actively trying to put Gordon in the leg entanglements himself. Really interesting to me. I have a couple theories on why that is, but what do you think of that? Yeah,
I think this is what you called out here in maybe even the preg trap section of your Grappling Bulletin article. But it really was interesting. I don't know if it was a 50-50 that he kept cycling through into, but it seemed Felipe Pena was very confident in not only working into that leg lock game, but it seemed to be a similar defense every time he was cycling through that position. Now, obviously, I'm not an expert in exactly what he was going through there, but it kept him safe for, 40 minutes, and then at the 41-minute mark ended up being the entry to one of his only submission moves that, seemed to put Gordon on the defensive throughout the match.
Yeah, that preg trap looked vicious. Let's just call it what it is. Like the torque that he got on Gordon's knee was probably the most significant moment for Felipe in the match. Felipe looked good. He was maintaining top position through a lot of the match, but I felt like that was his best shot at an attack. But it was really the use of 50-50 and single leg X and trying to wrestle up from that position that impressed me. And as I alluded to, I think knowing that Felipe on the previous 2 occasions had countered Gordon's leg lock to get to his back, and on one occasion to finish him, and on the second occasion to score enough points to win. Of course, Felipe is chasing after the leg entanglements, right? He knows that he's been most successful in countering those leg entanglements.
Yeah.
Jumping to Gordon, I think one thing that stood out to me was there were a couple of sweeps that really impressed me, but I want to talk first about his takedown game. There were 2 elements of that I went through and countered because I'm a little bit crazy. The first 8 minutes of the match, Gordon touched Felipe's head 33 times. And it's because he's looking to wear him out right off the bat, right? We talk about this being a match of endurance. The easiest way to break your opponent is just pull down on his neck. And Gordon seems like he's very dialed into that. And then, of course, what that meant is toward the end of the match, a big mat return, and then a chasing foot sweep, and then a final foot sweep in the very final seconds of the match. His takedown game is, I think, underrated, but looked phenomenal in that third matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. This is kind of one of the consequences of maybe not always having an athlete to match Gordon's size on some of these Who's Number One matches, where, even if Gordon does well against maybe some of his previous Who's Number One opponents, it's not as impressive because it's against a smaller guy, and usually he's not even really trying to prove that or engage in that way. So showing up against a guy like Felipe Pena and, proving that the talk that he's been doing about his success in scrimmage wrestling, the work he's been putting in, even several years ago of matching up against wrestlers on the mats to try and, kind of test his prowess on his feet. It's obviously paid off. It was something that I think Pena thought he was probably going to have the advantage on coming into this match on the takedown game, and ended up really not working out, in that direction. But I think that's a perfect call out early on in the match, making this, since it's a no time limit match, making this a little bit of a drag him out. I'm hard collar ties on the head, really working the neck and back muscles to tire him out. It's a super effective strategy for someone that's going to focus on, a scrimmage wrestling game like Gordon is here.
And those are just a couple of the things that stood out to me. But I went ahead and broke down 5 or 6 of, I think, my favorite kind of takeaways from that third match. Go back through the Grappling Bulletin article, which dropped this morning. Read through it. And let us know what you think. What stood out to you about that third match? It was a long match. There's a lot to take away from it. And I'm interested in hearing what, I guess, everybody has extrapolated from that match and what you think that means for this third match coming up. And, of course, it's all going to be altered, right? By the way, both of these guys have taken their own learnings and applied it to their camps for this upcoming match. But we're not going to have to wait much longer. Of course, the fourth match in this rivalry, Tezo, who's number 1, Gordon Ryan versus Felipe Pena 2, presented by Fat Tire, is coming on Saturday, February 25th. So we've talked about the past of this matchup a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the news coming to this card. This morning, we announced the 2 prelims, which will be free live on Facebook and YouTube the day of the event. Those kick off at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Up first, Dominic Mija versus Stein Lu Nguyen. And second up, Kalen Sabino versus Steven Martinez. Of course, as I mentioned, both of those matches free on YouTube, free on Facebook before the event starts. And, of course, they will be part of the FloGrappling stream. Before that, the official press conference, 4:30 p.m. Eastern on Friday. I'm really excited for this. If you guys caught the last press conference, you know that it's not kind of that dry conversation we sometimes get in a press conference. These 2 guys like to chirp at each other. It's going to be really exciting. It's as much off the mat jiu-jitsu as you get. There's definitely some maybe not intimidation tactics, but definitely some mental warfare.
Mental
starting
warfare
early.
for sure. Yeah. And also don't just tune in only for the prelim matchups. Before and after the prelim matchups actually get started, we have some really high-level analysis from experts all across the sport that come in and give their thoughts. They usually make their picks on who they think is going to win, and that in and of itself can be kind of controversial. I know that some of our commentators maybe don't always give the most direct choices, and they get to chirp back and forth and talk all kinds of mess between that. So it's going to be an entire weekend full of jiu-jitsu. It's not just the matches. So, stay tuned. keep interacting with us, whether it be on Instagram, whether it be following along with our all accesses, like you said, or be in the press conference. Now, also noted, I don't know who's running the press conference this time around, but your fan questions are something we very greatly value, right? So if you want your fan questions to be said during the podcast or the press conference, obviously interact in the chat. Secondary, just reach out to Corey, reach out to myself. We would love to make a short list to make sure that we're fielding as many questions from the community as possible.
Yeah, I'll be following along with you guys from the back of the room there. So make sure to drop us your questions. I will air them to the athletes. I'm sure they won't need any help in gathering, but we'll see if we can get your questions answered.
Yeah, but you guys can come in and stir up the drama. So there you go.
But that with the prelims announced, it means we now have a full card. Again, kicks off at 8:30 Eastern time on the 25th. Let's take a quick look at it. So up first, of course, Gordon Ryan versus Felipe Pena at the very top of the card. A heavyweight title bout, no time limit. The co-main event, Pedro Moreno, the reigning light heavyweight champion, will try to defend his title against Giancarlo Bodoni. Next down, JT Torres and Majid Hage both make their Who's Number One debuts. Oliver Taza takes on Jonathan Gracie. Jasmine Rocha and Amanda Bruce square off in a rematch from the ADCC trial semifinal, both of them making their Who's Number One debuts as well. And then Kieran Kachuk faces Who's Next contestant Renee Souza to start the main card. In the prelims, Kalen Sabino versus Steven Martinez and Dominic Mija versus Thailand Nguyen.
Dang, man, Corey, you're getting good at that. Yes, super exciting. If you call out, if you look at the top 3 matches, any one of those could be Who's Number One main card matchup or a main event matchup. You're talking about getting JT Torres and Majid Hage in here. You're talking about Giancarlo wanting the belt. There's nothing more exciting than, this level of jiu-jitsu happening, especially on a Who's Number One card because you get to hear from him. So that's super exciting. And also, shout out you, man. I don't know how you do all of that, it seems like in one breath. So, yeah. Corey is now he's looking for the pound for pound top 10 as far as jiu-jitsu commentator, so he's coming for everyone's spot.
By the way, in case you guys were not counting, the main card features 4 ADCC veterans, 4 ADCC champions, right?
Man.
Gordon Ryan, Felipe Pena, JT Torres, and Giancarlo Bodoni, and then several other ADCC veterans to boot.
That is a night of jiu-jitsu like no else. Now let us call out. We've said it a few times. You guys may have been listening before because turns out tickets are sold out, right? We told you guys to go to the link in our bio to get everything cleaned up, and you guys did exactly that, and we appreciate you. So if you're not able to watch in person, we'll be with you guys. There will be a live chat on both the YouTube, Facebook, and I believe on the Flow streams as well. So you're not alone. Just because you didn't get that last second ticket and make it out there.
Too late.
We're with you. We're with you. I'll be on my couch as well. So it's me and you guys. But it's super exciting. Any last second thoughts? Do you have a call for the winner? Are you willing to make a prediction here?
I'm not getting in there yet.
There we go.
Hearing on the pre-show here, I think.
That's fair. That's fair.
That's, I think, for now, enough for what's coming up this week. Let's talk a little bit about what's happened in the last couple of days in the news in the world of jiu-jitsu.
Let's do it.
Starting off, 6 athletes have changed their teams, have moved, have left, have joined new teams. Let's start off with the breaking news. Just earlier today, AOJ and Diego Pato announced that Pato has left Dream Art. He's joining AOJ. Of course, if you've been paying attention to either of their Instagrams, right, the AOJ Instagram, Pato's Instagram, or even who's been in Pato's corner over the last couple of major events, maybe no surprise.
They've been signaling it. Yeah.
Now it is official that Pato has joined AOJ, which adds just another dynamic, another high-level world champion to the ranks of AOJ. Right now they have guys at, of course, Roosterweight, Taliesin Suarez, world champion. They have plenty of guys. They have a loaded team at lightweight. They have a loaded team at middleweight, of course, with just Tynan Dalpera alone. Mateus Rodriguez at medium heavy. And now Pato slides in here at light featherweight. So they are, it seems to me, at least from, let's call it rooster to middle heavy, building a solid team that can contend for world titles in honestly every weight category.
Every weight category, and potentially like any competition rule set that you can think of. You have specialists for each. We've even heard, some of the art of jiu-jitsu. Main guy Tynan Dalprez played with ideas of switching over to nogi, having guys like Diego Pato who have found so much success in that realm. Another guy added into the group. It just feels like, like you said, another piece of the puzzle found. It's high level already. They don't have to invest in, building someone from the ground up. And man, it's really scary to think about. Well, when we talk about the highest level teams on earth, lots of people talk New Wave, they talk the B teams. Art of Jiu-Jitsu's in the question, but I think they're trying to make it pound for pound, like weight class for weight class. Their team can take on the world, and on some level so far, they're not far off.
Of course, Pato's not the only ADCC veteran who announced changing of or at least leaving of a team this last weekend. Isaac Michel made the announcement that he had left B team earlier this week. So more ADCC veterans moving on.
That's super exciting. We talked about where Diego Pato may be going or is going, but where do you think B team's Isaac Michel could end up now that he's doing his own thing?
The world is kind of wide open for Isaac. We saw that maybe post ADCC, he had spent some time training in Brazil with, among others, the Melky Galvao team, which was an interesting collab that I honestly was not expecting.
Can you imagine? He just goes down to Brazil, moves out there, and goes into the jungle, comes back. Still does jiu-jitsu, obviously, but that would be such a funny move for him.
And it's great for Isaac too, right? Because he of course spent some time with the Melky team, but he also did some reuniting with his former, who's next, I can't remember, teammate or doesn't matter, Jansen Gomez. He spent some time out with Jansen Gomez, who I think he fought in the semifinal. And then more recently, he's been, I think, either spending time or planning to spend some time out at Atos with Adam Bradley. So Isaac kind of doing a tour of the Who's Next cast. And I think there are plenty of Nogi heavy teams where he could land. I think it's really too early to speculate exactly where he'll end up. But there is one more free agent kind of looking for a place to land here. So interesting to see how that story kind of shapes out. He, of course, not only the Who's Next winner, season 1 winner, but also a brown belt Nogi world champion.
That is a big name free agent, possibly one of the biggest names on this list today, but I know that's not the only one we have. Who else do we have moving along?
Yeah, so 3 athletes have left Fight Sports. They announced it earlier this month. We caught up with all of them earlier this week. Andre Porfirio, Maggie Grandati, and Lucas Lira have all announced leaving Fight Sports. At least for Porfirio and Grandati, they are remaining free agents for now. They have not announced a new team. However, Lira signaled that he'd be moving to Dream Art, to Dream Art USA right here in Houston, Texas, which is an interesting change. Of course, Lira, a brown belt Nogi world champion, and if you remember, he was invited to ADCC 2022. He had something that got in the way of that competition, but obviously to be invited to ADCC in I think it was the 88 kilogram division, that takes a reputable high-level grappler. So Lucas Lira moving to Dream Art is an interesting development there.
And I think we should definitely call out that leaves Fight Sports in a little bit of a weird spot. Just 6-7 months ago, they had the Manaus crew on their side. They had really big names showing up on the cutting edge of the competition circuit. And now the Manaus brothers stepped away several weeks ago from the Fight Sports label to do their own thing. Now we're losing Andre Porfirio and Maggie Grandati and Lucas Lira have stepped away. So it really does open up quite a bit of opportunity for some of these newer, younger Fight Sports athletes, maybe newer black belts or brown belts that are just kind of looking at that competition scene, and they've seen what maybe their teammates have done in the past, and now it's their time. It gives that kind of space for them to shine a little bit. Hopefully we start seeing a new crop of competitor come out of that team association, because it feels like there's plenty of opportunity for it.
And I think that my perspective here is that makes their, let's call him maybe flagship athlete right now, Roosevelt Souza, who has been doing a lot of damage. I'm excited to see what he can do at Pans, and really throughout the rest of the season. I think he could be a threat in the. He'd have to be ultra heavyweight division. Yeah. I'm excited to see what Roosevelt can do. So Lucas Lira joins Dream Art, but Thalita Silva announced, I think it was earlier last week, that she had left Dream Art, the 2023 European champion, 2022 European champion also, by the way, left Dream Art to join Fratries BJJ. And she announced what to me was a really interesting development, that she had signed a 2-year contract with Fratries.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Obviously, contracts are not something that are, as of now, the most usual thing we see in jiu-jitsu. Team membership is about a lot more about loyalty and a lot less about legal contractual terms. So this is an interesting move as far as, as far as trend-wise, what we're going to see in the sport. Corey, what do you think about contracts with gym associations?
So, yeah, it's an interesting question because I don't know that contracts are not done in jiu-jitsu as much as they're not discussed.
Fair.
Now, because they're not very often discussed, I don't really know how often it is common practice, but I think ultimately, every major sport, a team has a contract with an athlete. Now, most major sports also have trades, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is something that's a little bit unusual in the sport, but I think ultimately it's beneficial for not just the athletes involved, but also for the sport. I think if we're going to engage in let's call it what it is, it's a trade, right? Mm-hmm. The team is giving this athlete a place to train. They're theoretically giving the athlete a salary or whatever they need to compete. And in trade, the athlete is providing marketing, training, sometimes teaching, any number of things really. But in order to have that kind of relationship, there needs to be an open and explicit value put on that service, right? Mm-hmm. And every other sport has done this, right? You play for my team, I give you X number of dollars. And I think it's a matter of time that we kind of see this becoming more common practice in jiu-jitsu for the benefit of really the athletes and everybody.
Absolutely. And something fair to call out, like as soon as it gets contracts and legal and all that kind of thing, it's very easy to kind of pull away because it feels a little bit different than maybe you're used to, a little bit more serious, a little bit less scrupulous. But I think the real fact of the matter comes down to what's in the contract, right? So there's some pitfalls that I immediately could see. Now, I want to call out, these are all hypotheticals. We're talking about if contracts saw expanded use across the grappling competition scene, some pitfalls that we would want to make red flags about. And this is not about Talita's specific contract with Fratries, right? We don't want to cast any doubt on what they got going on over there, right? But I just want to call out the things that would matter to athletes, right? So first off, as we see more of these contracts, we want to make sure that how do they interact with sponsorships? Will gyms seek to package kind of their own sponsorships and have their athletes represent those sponsors that they've already made deals with? Will it determine what kind of competitions that they can engage in, right? Is this going to be where gyms don't want to be associated just with every jiu-jitsu competition out there? Will it affect their seminar schedule? Some of these other kind of cross-training, some of those questions that will always be up in the air until you kind of see the fine print of the contract. But by and large, regardless of any, of those missteps that I think could potentially be made, at the end of the day, we're solving the first problem, which is getting athletes paid, right?
Sure, and I think any of those could be potential issues, right? But as long as this is put in a document, the thing that I like about this is that it is explicit, right? I say if you want to compete for my team, you have to compete in these tournaments. You have to compete in this many tournaments a year. You have to, you have to travel and do a seminar once a year. You have to represent this sponsor.
Sure. Whatever
it is, as long as we're in a situation where I have a document that says, this is what I am expected to do, this is what I can do, this is what I can't do. We're not in the situation where, I don't think you should do that.
Yeah.
Right. And anytime it's open and explicit and the athlete knows how much they're getting paid, how much they're being valued for the service that they're bringing, for the goods they're delivering to the team, I think it only helps to kind of benefit the sport.
And I think that's a great call out. I think what we're going to end up seeing is these larger teams become larger, there's only so much income coming into those gyms, and to divvy that out across a large range of professionals that maybe don't have the same kind of stake in the company long term, it's very difficult to pay them their value, right? So this may be a great opportunity for gyms that do have a large share of high-level athletes that need to have their training subsidized in some way, but don't necessarily have the ownership stake in that gym specifically. It feels like a great way to kind of hook the athletes up with an avenue that can lead towards financial success as well as professional and athletic success.
It's for sure a heavy topic that we're not going to exhaust here, but definitely an interesting development. Let's move on to some big news coming from Flow Sports Studios. Following the rise of Giancarlo Bodoni, which released last month, Flow Sports Studios just announced the ups and downs of the Manaus Boys, a Flow film, which is going to premiere on March 8th.
Love that.
Yeah, of course, it follows the boys from Manaus, right? The Milky Galvao team, Diogo Reis, Mika Galvao, and Fabricio Andre, through their run through the grueling ADCC trials period in South America, and ending up at the ADCC World Championships in Las Vegas last year. Now, of course, there were different results for all three of those competitors. They all obviously won the trials period, but only one of them was able to achieve an ADCC world title, that being Diogo Reis. Mika took second. Fabricio had kind of a heartbreaking loss to his friend, to his teammate Diogo Reis in I believe it was the quarterfinals. But this documentary is going to be following them through the trials period, following them through the World Championships, and getting some real behind-the-scenes access and some great insight into exactly how this all went down for this breakout team. They just had a breakout success at this event.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm what you had mentioned there about, obviously ADCC was the moment in time that kind of captured, everyone's imagination in jiu-jitsu. But even before that, when we're talking about the ADCC trials period, let's not forget, obviously, Mika had established his brand and his name by then already. That was why people really seemed to gravitate towards this group of guys. But through that ADCC trials period, we saw Diogo, we saw Fabricio, both come out on fire, and it felt like there was a real fervor in the air, a real excitement to see those guys on the mat too, right? It seemed like just in that kind of qualifier build-up tournament setting, they showed that they can show up in exciting ways. In ADCC, they showed that they could win against some of the biggest and best on earth. But those trials matches showed highlight reels. They showed aggression. They showed submission-oriented jiu-jitsu in a way that lots of people that are trying to qualify for their ADCC that may be going the safe route don't open up like. And man, it made a fan out of, if not everyone else in jiu-jitsu, me.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I'm a huge Fabricio Andre fan. I love his style, but I was kind of a doubter going into the Sao Paulo trials, right? Because Fabricio, as amazing as his jiu-jitsu had proven to be in the gi, I'd never seen him in no-gi. And, there's so much of his style that, yes, is fun to watch, but okay, is that really going to work in no-gi competition though? But very first match, he proved me wrong. Hit beautiful inverted flying triangle, and then followed that up with triangles over the top, left and right and center. Looked amazing. And then, you have to believe, okay, this kid is definitely good enough to win ADCC. Now, didn't pan out, but that's part of the story of this team. And I'm really excited to see what Reed and team have come up with here. Again, the film, The Ups and Downs of the Manaus Boys, premieres March 8th. You can catch the trailer live during the Who's Number One broadcast. It will be the premiere of the trailer on February 25th.
And man, we're about to see what kind of stood out and made Fabricio's run so nice, because obviously he ran into teammate Diogo Reis. He got a good first-round win over Colabate early on. Ran into Diogo, got put out. But then he comes out in the absolute against Victor Hugo with one of the most exciting attempts at an absolute from a small guy that you can have. Now, obviously, there's some small guys that have made their names on the absolute before, but oftentimes they do it with a style that is about catching leg locks, about trying to drag the big man in, and very seldom do you see a guy Fabricio size go in there and go, no, I'm going to wrestle Victor Hugo. You know what I mean? It was just one of the craziest moments, and seeing that was his strategy. If you're not a fan of Fabricio, you may not be a fan of the most exciting jiu-jitsu.
Man, when the absolute brackets were drawn, I remember somebody sending me a message with like, hey, here's the absolute brackets going to come out in just a minute. And seeing Fabricio versus Victor and being like, at first, a little bummed for Fabricio.
Yeah.
And then also being like, okay, if there's any little guy who's going to put on a show against Victor Hugo, it's going to be Fabricio Andre. And then like just getting so excited at the idea of that matchup, and neither one of those guys disappointed. And I appreciated watching Victor Hugo open up a bit in a match that, you know, I'm sure he could have just laid down the law and crushed Fabricio there, but he wanted to play the game and give a show for the fans. So both of those guys really delivered. But anyway, like I said, the film premieres March 8th. You can catch the premiere of the trailer on February 25th during the Who's Number One broadcast.
Man, exciting. We're doing so much stuff out of our films department. I don't know if those guys sleep. I don't know where they sleep. I think they probably just have sleeping bags that they pull out, mattresses coming out from under their couch.
Didn't you see the bunker? Like the barracks they built in the...
Oh, they have a barracks now? Oh, God. Our video department, send help, SOS. Cool, man.
Real quick, let's talk about some of the biggest results from the weekend, because, of course, the IBJJF returned still in Europe for the London Open this weekend, and there were a couple of results that just really stood out to me. The very first being Wanderson Ferreira, who won gold in the medium heavyweight division. This, of course, being Wanderson's black belt debut just a couple of weeks ago. At brown belt, he took double gold at Euros, submitting nearly everybody, but then in the semifinal here at the London Open, he defeated the reigning black belt European medium heavyweight champion Jansen Gomez. So Wanderson proving that he deserves to be among the top, that he belongs at the top of the medium heavyweight division already here in his very first black belt tournament.
That's insane. To do that on your debut, to take out Jansen Gomez of all people, is absolutely incredible.
And then Wanderson's style is just so much fun to watch. He moves in this just incredibly dynamic outside passing way. It reminds me of Tara Ray, the way he moves, or like even flashes of Ronaldo Jr. It's just very, very rapid fire, non-stop action. He does not care about giving up position. He's going to take the risk every single time. And of course, that led him to winning the medium heavyweight division. Like I said, beating Jansen Gomez in the semifinal, but Jansen bounced back.
That wasn't the end of his story.
No. He went right back after the absolute title, as he is one to do, and he put on a show in that absolute campaign. In the final, he met Roberto Jimenez, and let's roll the tape here. This match was just bonkers. This is just a couple of clips here from Jansen versus Roberto, but exactly what you would expect from Jansen versus Roberto every single time.
Oh, yeah. I love both of these athletes. Jansen may be one of the most secretly chippy athletes I know, as far as he finds ways to frustrate opponents, get in their head, and maybe not always look like he's playing that kind of mental warfare. I saw that a lot against Rene Souza whenever they had Who's Next. But here in the gi, it just feels like a different thing. He's always seen a level of dominance
like
in the gi.
Ankle pick.
That we don't often see. And, man, to just you know that you are given a treat if you're at a random open and Jansen Gomez and Roberto Jimenez are the absolute final. But you mentioned that, after this matchup, this wasn't also the end of the story for Roberto. Is that right?
Yeah, so Roberto, in order to get here, won the heavyweight title at the London Open, but then he showed up again on the second day, the no-gi day, and took double gold. So 3 stellar outings from these guys, right? Wanderson Ferreira won the medium heavyweight division. Jansen Gomez won the absolute division. And then, Roberto Jimenez took the heavyweight division and also double gold in the no-gi iteration of the tournament. These clips, by the way, courtesy of our friends over at Grapple Culture, doing a great job of covering the whole event out there. Check out their Instagram page. They have essentially footage from every important match at that tournament. Of course, those 3 weren't the only big names to show up for the London Open. Tayane Porfirio made her return after a 4-year suspension. Great to see Tayane back on the mat.
Do you expect now that she's back, or do you expect us to see her at some of the majors? I know Tayani was one of the names we pulled up whenever we were talking about Gabby Pisania's path to an absolute or a double Grand Slam, and Tayani being, one of the big names, showing back up at the London Open, showing that she's back on the IBJJF scene. Now, whenever I think of Opens and I think of these, professional athletes, whether it's Roberto, whether it's Jansen, whether it's Tayani, it just shows that you're prioritizing getting the mat time in, right? So Tayani right now is on the competition circuit, so looking out for times she can be on the clock, be scoring points, be figuring out what it's like to be back on the mat for that IBJJF scene. So whenever we do meet up, if she does end up meeting a Gabby Pisania match, do you think she's a big disruptor still after her debut at the, or I guess re-debut, reintroduction in the London Open?
Absolutely. I think, Tayani kind of showed it right off the bat. She looked great in her return. She took default gold in the super heavyweight division, but then followed it up with an absolute title. So she has had quite a bit of time off from explicitly IBJJF competition, right? She was suspended 2018, 4-year suspension. She was eligible to return after Worlds of 2022, but in that time, soon after she had a baby, she gave birth to her daughter in September. So her eligibility was, let's call it, delayed a little bit. Now that she's back, she looked in great form, and during that 4-year suspension, she was competing a little bit on the AJP Tour circuit as well as at BJJ Bet. So we had a little bit of insight into what the Tayani match versus Gabby, what Tayani versus Gabby looks like. And I'm excited for what this means for not just the super heavyweight, but also the absolute division. Tayani is 1-2 against Gabby Pisania. She beat her at BJJ Bet, and then she lost 2 close matches to her at World Pro in 2021. But she looks like a legitimate challenge to Gabby Pisania, and really the absolute division and the super heavyweight division in the last couple of years, really more or less since Tayani's absence, have been dominated by Gabby Pisania and Yara Sor, as they have the lion's share of all of the major medals since Tayani's departure.
Man, yeah, adding another person in the mix that's going to be able to challenge for the top spot in any weight class, whether it's, the women's absolute or, any other division you can imagine. I love seeing more players in the game and more question marks around, someone's run that's as dominant as Gabby Pisania's right now, right? Gabby Pisania, like you said, Yara Soares, there's some of the athletes where when I look at an IBJJF bracket, if I have to bet my paycheck on something, it's going to be that they're in the finals of their division, of the absolute. So, a lot of the excitement that comes from these is going to, I think, be ramped up when you introduce a problem like Tayani back into the divisions. You're releasing a shark into the waters, and, this is the next generation of competition that as they've been coming up, maybe we haven't been able to see, both at their primes at the same time. Like now we are. Now they can peak in competition season. They're both got IBJJF on their mind. It should be very good for the divisions and for the fans.
Very excited to see Tayani make her return. Welcome back to her, and I'm excited to see. We caught up with her earlier. Toward the end of the weekend. She said she will not be returning for Pans, but she is targeting Worlds. I think Worlds would be a great place for her to return.
Oh, yeah.
And challenge Gabby Pisania for the queen of the super heavyweight division, potentially queen of the absolute. That does it for our weekend roundup, but we have plenty more events to come. Let's quickly just go back over those. We're going to talk about it again. Tezos, who's number 1, Gordon Ryan versus Felipe Pena 2, presented by Fat Tire. The press conference on February 24th, 4:30 p.m. Eastern. The full card starts on February 25th, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Going to be a full night of fights, full night of competition. The 2 free prelims that we mentioned at the top of the show, available for free on Facebook and YouTube. The rest of the card only available on FloGrappling. The following day, on Sunday, February 26th, Finishers Combat returns for Finishers Combat 4. This one features 2 title fights as well as an array of super fights. Up first, Trinity Pun, the Finishers 145-pound champ, will move up in weight to challenge Vanessa Griffin for the 155-pound belt. Vanessa, the 155-pound reigning champion. And In the men's division, at 185, Kimoy Anderson, who is the interim title, and Sean Yadamarco, who is the interim champion, and Sean Yadamarco, who is the reigning champion, will try to unify that 185-pound belt.
Mm-hmm.
That's on February 26th in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. On FloGrappling, those shows typically run toward early afternoon, so make sure to tune in for that one. Next Friday. So we're getting right back into this. It does not stop. Next Friday, March 3rd, the Tezos IBJJF FloGrappling Grand Prix, which will feature 2 4-athlete divisions as well as 3 big super fights. The men's lightweight Grand Prix for $10,000 features Andy Murasaki, Jonathan Alves, Carlos Inhiki, and Samuel Nagai. The women's 4-athlete Grand Prix, also for $10,000, features 4 world champions, Ana Carolina Vieira, Nachiele De Jesus, Andrasa Sintra, and Melissa Cueto. And then also, of course,
Corey is a freaking professional. I'm going to jump in here so he can breathe for 1 second, but can we give a round of applause in the chat for Corey? How do you do this every week, man?
We can even pretend I'm going off of knowledge.
I love it. Yeah.
In the main event super fight, a 30-minute bout between Izaki Bayens and Tynan Dalpera. This one has me really excited. Of course, the IBJJF FloGrappling Grand Prix is going to feature those new rules we talked about last week, right? Mm-hmm. Very strictly enforced stalling rules.
Stalling calls. You hear that, guys? Celebrations all around.
So in this 30-minute match, it's going to be really interesting to see how that develops. Also on the card, by the way, Francisco Lowe versus Ronaldo Jr.,
mm-hmm.
which to me could be one of the most explosive matches of the year. I'm really excited to see what happens here. And then the reigning IBJJF FloGrappling Grand Prix champion Janine Labrie will take on Natalie Hibero. So that another just stellar all-star match, both of them champions in their own right. A week after that, we're going to kick it over to Sogi in Long Island, New York, which will feature a middleweight bracket. Not sure exactly how many athletes will be in that bracket as of yet, but they're still developing that out. And then, of course, a main event heavyweight title fight between Alex Nemeth and the adult slayer, Pat Chigoli.
Just to clarify, for my sake, Pat Chigoli is the one that's been taking these home with him, hanging them over his fireplace. I know that there's been some chirping online whenever he had, and basically anytime he steals someone's legs away from him. So if you're looking for maybe shocking displays of some jiu-jitsu skill, this could be it.
Yeah, Pat Chigoli has got some mean leg locks, but Alex Nemeth is no joke. He's been very active on the finishers sub-only circuit. I've seen him out there quite a bit. He's definitely going to be a test for Pat Chigoli. And then later on this month, the 2023 IBJJF Pan Championships. We're still waiting for athletes to trickle in there. There have been some big names jump in. We caught Diego Pato is already in there, as is Diogo Hayes. Many, many more. I'm not going to go through every division, but there are plenty of standout names headed to Pans. And, of course, many of them will be those athletes that we have talked about potentially searching for the Grand Slam. This, of course, the second of 4 steps to get there. So those athletes who have teased chasing a Grand Slam this season will for sure be entering into Pans. Takes place in Kissimmee, Florida, March 21st through 26th.
Good old Kissimmee, man. We spent some time in Kissimmee, Florida.
We have the Silver Spurs Rodeo Arena. Is one of my favorite venues on earth. Don't know why. Maybe it's the lighting.
There's a great diner down the road. The great diner. Yeah.
The Rodeo Diner.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Rodeo Diner. And then up in just a couple of months, the Emerald City Invitational 6. We have till April 29th for this thing to finish out, but Emerald City already dropping some heat on us. They are planning to feature a 16-athlete women's 135-pound bracket. Some of those names include Trinity Pun, Miranda Maverick, Peyton Letcher, Claire North.
Miranda Maverick is also the coolest name on earth. That's like a WWE wrestling name. So shout out Miranda, yeah.
And then on top of that, a 32-athlete men's 135-pound bracket, including Estevan Martinez, Valor Boyer, Manny Vasquez, several more. It's a 32-man division, so it's going to be just loaded. I like those deep brackets. It gives us an opportunity to watch guys like Estevan have a couple of matches before he gets into the challenging one.
yeah, and it really is a little bit more of a test of heart, a little bit of test of will, so that will be fun. 32 people That's a long path to victory there.
Of course, Emerald City is in the EBI format, so those could be some lengthy matches and definitely a test of endurance. But excited to see what else Emerald City has lined up for us in this this ECI tournament taking place on April 29th. But of course, that's a ways away, and there are many events in between now and then, including, I'll say it one more time,
Give it to us.
Tezos, who's number 1.
Yeah.
Gordon Ryan versus Felipe Pena 2, happening on Saturday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Tune in for that. I'm sure you guys are not going to want to miss this. And we will catch up with you on the Monday following, on the 27th.
We will be having a show.
We will be having a show on the Monday following.
You heard it here, folks.
Talk about all of what happened at that event, much more. I'm sure that we're going to have a lot to break down. Make sure you stay with us. Until then, catch you guys later. Finger guns again.